So welcome everyone, and this week the main story in our parsha is the first arranged marriage in the Torah, right? In the world, so to speak, as it were. Up until now, all the people who married, they found wives, they dated, shall we say, and for the first time, somebody is trying to find a marriage partner for his child. And that's the story that we're going to talk about today. And so I titled it The First Arranged Marriage, Failure or Success. So what do you say? Generally, at the bottom line, so to speak, the bottom line, would you say it was a success or a failure?
Success.
Success, okay. And why you say success?
Well, we're still talking about it today.
Okay. So the story is very long. That's why you see this long pizza here. It's actually one of the longest chapters in the Bible. It's 67 verses. And you rarely find such a long story in the Torah. And so the question is why? Why does the Torah care to tell us so many details about this arranged marriage and how it transpired? So what do we do when we have a long story, when we have a long plot? We do a table of contents. So that's the one thing that's missing from the Torah. You know, I wish if I had to edit the Torah today, I would add a table of contents. So that's what I did for us tonight, to sort of give us a little bit each section. And what we're going to do is each section, we're going to read the section and then ask questions. What questions arise from that section of the story? Okay, so we have an introduction, and the introduction is one verse. And let's look at that verse. V'Adonai berach et Avraham bakol. That's how the story opens. And in English, I didn't quote the entire Hebrew verse because I want to focus on the last part, but the entire verse reads. Any volunteer to read?
Abraham was now old, advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things.
How do you understand the word in all things? Bakol. All things what? What does that entail? What does that include?
In all parts of his life, no?
Okay. All parts of his life, meaning
his family and material things.
Oh wait, that's two different things. There's material things and there's family.
Yes.
So
But it says in all things, so it would be both.
Both. Okay. So Rashi, let's play a little gematria. He likes the word bakol and thinks there's some special hidden meaning there. So let's do some math here. So anybody remember values of letters? Let's do this together. So bakol is 2 plus 20 plus 30. What does that come out?
52.
And ben is 2 plus 50. Oh, look at that. So Rashi says the numerical value of the word bakol is equal to that of ben, suggesting that God had blessed Abraham with a son, and since he had a son, he had to find him a wife. So bakol is just the son that he had, Isaac, but he actually had more than one son. But we're focusing now on Isaac, so that's bakol, not his wealth. But that's not pshat. You know, these games of gematria, they're nice, they're cute, but I don't think they are pshat. What I think here is there's a bit of irony. The way I read it is that he really does not have everything. So you guys pointed out there's wealth and there's family. He has a lot of wealth. He has cattle and he has servants.
Yes, right.
But he doesn't have a married son. His son is not marrying and having his own family, which is really what he
The
wants.
next generation, yes.
The
He
next
doesn't have-
generation.
He
Yeah.
doesn't have a link to the next.
Yeah.
generation.
I think there is a little bit of tinge of sadness in this word bakol. Outwardly, he's rich, he's wealthy. At the beginning of the parsha, he was given the honor by the Hittites to bury his wife, and they all said, "You're a master, you're a man of God." You know, so he has recognition, but really, he doesn't have what's the most important thing: the next generation, a son that has married and has his own family. And realizing that, we go. So that's how I understand the word. There's a bit of irony in the word there. And then we go to the next section. So let's go back to our table of contents. So Abraham calls his servant and gives him a mission under oath. And the mission is, go find a wife for my son Isaac from the land of my birth, and do not bring me a Canaanite girl. Let's see it inside. The verses are, volunteer to read the mission.
Okay. Abraham said to his servant, the elder of his household, who ruled over all that was his, put your hand under my thigh. I want you to swear by God, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the women of the Canaanites, among whom I am settled. Rather, you are to go to my land and to my kindred and take a wife for my son, for Yitzchak.
Thank you. So what questions arise when you read this part of the story, the mission?
Well, I've always wondered by nowadays standards what people would have said if somebody asked to put a hand under their thigh.
Yeah, but this was ancient practice in the Middle East.
Right.
Yeah, it's when I teach this children in Sunday school, they always are very, very puzzled by this. And but this appears in other places in the Torah. So I guess so one question is why an oath? But even before that, I have an even more basic question. Why is he doing this matchmaking? Why is he telling the servant? What would be the natural way for Isaac to get married?
He could find a wife for himself.
Oh, he could find. Why isn't he doing what everybody has done before him?
I'm not so
He's
sure.
surrounded by Canaanites.
But still, so he can go and travel, and he's 40 years old, by the way. He's 40. He's not, 16, 18, 20. At this point in his life, he's 40 years old. And what I think is happening here, so let's look at the questions. Okay, so the next, there is a back and forth before that. And the servant said to him, what if the woman does not consent to follow me to this land? Should I then take your son back to the land from which you came? And Abraham responds, on no account must you take my son back there. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of his master, Abraham, and swore to him as bidden. Okay, that concludes that part of the oath. And the questions are, so several questions. And I think that Isaac was traumatized by the Akedah.
Mhm.
And when he's 40, it's already past the age of getting married. Abraham realizes that and says, okay, I need to intervene. I think the binding of Isaac has traumatized him to the point that he doesn't have the confidence. To date, he is introverted, all kinds of psychological. I mean, can you imagine your father standing over you with a knife about to kill you? What would that do to the kid?
Well, you know what? He wasn't such a kid when that happened. And that tells me that he wasn't a completely normal person.
So, well,
I have a different take. Something's bothering me. So I'm surrounded by Canaanites. So he can't go out and find in the Canaanites. And yet he tells, was it Eliezer?
Yeah.
I don't want him going back to my old homeland. So what's the guy going to do? This is a patriarchal society with a capital P. I mean, you don't do anything without the approval of the master. of the household.
Right.
Nothing. So he can't find a woman around in the neighborhood.
Okay, but if we
And he
compare,
can't go back to the old homeland.
right, so
How do we know that arranged marriages weren't the norm at that time?
That's my point.
that's a great point.
That's
so-
my point.
So I was going to bring proof from the story of Jacob. When Jacob was told by his father, in other words, after Isaac and Rebekah give birth to Jacob and Esav, and they have that big deceit, and then Yitzchak tells Jacob, go and find yourself a wife. I was going to bring proof, contrast that and say, why can't Isaac do the same thing? Because Isaac told his son, go and find a wife from your family in Aram, and that's how he found Rachel and Leah.
Right.
Right. So, but I think then you would say to me, no, he was fleeing from Esau. That's really why he's going away.
And his mother sent him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, also, don't we know that Isaac was very shy when Rebekah first is visible to him coming back and he's in the field and he sees her and he's very shy initially.
Right. So I think he's shy. He's introverted. He needs help from his dad to get married. Okay. So, and I think another thing factor here, Abraham has guilt feelings. Maybe I, with that Kedah, with the binding, with that whole traumatic story, I have caused him now some really serious damage, mental issues, which are preventing him from getting married. So now I'm going to intervene. I'm going to step up and correct, so to speak, what I did wrong earlier. Regardless of the fact that it was God's command. And last year we had a whole session about that. I think Abraham, in the end, his conscience told him don't do it. But still, it's from Isaac's perspective, it's very traumatic, and Abraham realizes that. So that's why he needs to intervene. But now the second question is, okay, that's easy to answer. Why can't Abraham go and choose a lady for his son? Why is he trusting his servant?
Well, he's pretty old.
Okay, right.
100
So
years old.
right.
In terms of another reason why he sends Eliezer and not Yitzchak is for Abraham, because he wanted to have the son, he wanted to have the grandchildren, but he almost killed his son. So why would Isaac have wanted to stay there if he had an out?
Well, I got lost connectivity, so I missed part of the question.
I was simply saying that Abraham sends Eliezer rather than Isaac. Had he sent Isaac, given the family dynamic, Isaac very well might not have returned.
Good point. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of baggage in that family. So
Maybe there's the political environment. Abraham didn't feel that secure to leave. The political,
Too.
Okay.
the physical environment with the Hittite, the
Yeah.
Yeah, he had to be there to make sure from a defense point of view.
Yeah. Okay. Why an oath? Why can't he just give him instructions? Why this whole, put your hand under my thigh, I swear to you, you swear to me. The Seforno says he's afraid that he'll be bribed. As much as he trusts him, he's afraid that he'll be bribed by some family who will hear about Abraham's wealth. So an oath is to prevent this problem of him being bribed by a Canaanite family and then bringing a Canaanite girl and maybe lying about it. And then finally, the major question here of this whole story really is, who is the servant? And why he has no name. Throughout the entire 67 verses, it's probably the only story in Tanakh where the main character has no name. The protagonist has no name. He is constantly referred to as servant. Very bewildering, very puzzling. Pilei ploim. So the Midrash and commentaries, they address this question. And some of you already mentioned the word Eliezer, the name Eliezer, and it seems that, we've been taught, we've read in Rashi that it's Eliezer. Why? Where did they come up that from? That's not out of thin air. Because earlier in chapter 15, there was a guy named Eliezer. The Torah mentions a guy named Eliezer in the Pasuk where Abraham is talking to Adonai. He has no son yet. He has neither Yishmael nor Yitzchak. And he says to God, I'm going to die accursed. And the only person here, Uben Meshek Beiti, who domestic Eliezer. Do you see the slide with the
Yes.
yes? So, and the son domestic of my house is Damascus Eliezer. So the rabbis already in the Midrash say, oh, so since we have a name here, this must be the guy who Abraham sent. This must be that servant who is referred to in our parsha as the servant. But what's the problem with that? Is that there are many discrepancies. I want to show now. Other translations say that Ben Meshek Beiti, Meshek is like household. Even in modern Hebrew, we say when you talk about how many households, children in households in Israel, or the consumption of electricity households, they use that word Meshek, Mishkei Habayit. So other translations say steward of my house. But let's compare, and we see that it's not really the same person. That person was never called an Eved, was never called a servant. I think he was a much higher status person. That person was from Damascus. In our parsha, there's never a mention of someone from Damascus. That person over there was somebody who Abraham thought might inherit him. Since when do servants inherit their masters? I think that Eliezer was sort of like somebody Abraham was godfather to him. That's why he is Ben Meshek Beiti. He's a member of my household, and maybe he helped him raise him. Maybe he taught him. Yes, he definitely was around the house. But look, compare the verses. He's not an Eved, and also it wouldn't make sense that Abraham says to God, my Eved is going to inherit me. So that doesn't happen. So I'm not convinced by all the midrashim that say it was Eliezer. I think it's a different person. And we're going to get to that later. Why that person remains without a name. Okay. So
I think it's the same person.
okay. So yeah, I mean, there are midrashim and commentaries that they're really bothered by the fact that the protagonist has no name. And they want to give him a name. And so they're doing everything they can to find a name. But when you look at the verses, there's nothing similar. Even the word describing the servant, that he is moshel b'chol asher lo. We don't see that word moshel, controlling or ruling. We don't see that in the verse that talks about the Eliezer. All it says there is, steward of my house. Okay, but maybe it is. Okay.
Well, that's the way they described Joseph, as the steward of the household, and they described him as having the key to the everything. He was in charge of the whole household. So I think it's the same person.
Okay, could be. And even if it is, then that begs the question, why not say Eliezer? Why not say, you've already mentioned him, why not say Abraham called Eliezer and said to him, I want you to swear, I'm giving you an oath, here's your mission, etc., etc. It's even more perplexing. So you already introduced the person, just mention him again. You don't even have to tell us who he is. Just say domestic Eliezer, we'll know, we're going to go back to chapter 15, we'll remember him. Okay, so the question remains. It's really an unanswered question. Okay, then we go to the next part of the table of contents. And the next part was, after the mission, there was the servant prays and devises the test. What's the test? The famous test. When I ask the girl to draw water for me, she will draw water for me and also for my camels. And so that's actually another question that we're going to talk about right now. Let's read the test. He starts his journey and he realizes that he has not been given any clarifications about what type of girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's very strange. So Abraham says, okay, I don't want you to bring a Canaanite, but that still leaves a huge pool of girls. I mean, doesn't Abraham care if she's pretty? He doesn't care if she's good, has good manners, if she's honest, if she's trustworthy, if she's what comes from a good family. Like nothing. Nothing. And so this servant now is at a loss, basically. And he really has no guidance, no instructions, no restrictions, not even anything to direct him what type of girl. Now, you might say he grew up, or he's in the house where Isaac lives, so he knows Isaac's character, but still, he received a mission, and he never asks Abraham. So the question is on both of them. Why Abraham did not give him instructions, here's the kind of girl that I want you to choose, and why the servant did not ask Abraham, okay, I understand she cannot be Canaanite, but what about her character? What is important to you? And so he on his own is praying to God and asking for divine help and coming up with this test. And the test is as follows. Here, when I have stationed myself by the water spring, as the women of the town go out to draw water, may it be that the maiden to whom I say, lower your pitcher, that I may drink, and she says, drink, and I will also give your camels to drink, let her be the one that you have decided on for your servant, for Isaac. And on that verse begins with a special trope. So you see here the Vayomar, the servant said, Adonai Elohei Adonai Abraham, Hakrena lefanai hayom v'aseh chesed Adonai Abraham. Please cause to happen to me today and perform loving kindness with my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the water fountain, and then the test, and etc. And on the word Vayomar is a shalshelet. So it goes like this. Vayomar. And this is only 4 times in the entire Torah, that kind of trope. What is that? Why is that significant?
Didn't you teach? Is this the one, Shammai, the Shashel, it is when there's uncertainty?
What kind of uncertainty? Explain.
Of making a decision of
finding somebody.
Right.
He doesn't know.
He doesn't have the criteria.
Okay.
Is this the right test?
Yes. Yes.
We had it 2 weeks ago. We had the Shalshelet when there was that hesitation.
Yeah, with Lot, right.
Lot,
When he did not leave Sodom, the city of Sodom, he was told that he's about to be destroyed, and he hesitated. And so here there's also hesitation, uncertainty. What is the test? What are the criteria that I need to employ? And then on his own, he comes up with this amazing test, which actually is executed. So I'm going to have to skip a little bit. And this test, we hear about it 4 times. In other words, when I ask her to draw water for me, then she will draw water not only for me, but also for my camels. How do we hear about it 4 times? When he devises the test, when he's praying to God, that's where we have the Shoshelet. When the test happens, when she comes out and then she sees her and she actually does it. And then he goes to her house and he starts talking to persuade her brother and her father, Lavan and Betuel, that they should give permission for her to come back with him. Again, the Torah doesn't say, and he told them everything that had happened. The Torah goes through again the whole story, how he devised the test, and then again, how the test was executed, how it actually happened. So we hear this test 4 times. So again, not only Shalshelet, but a repetition 4 times of the same test. That's telling us this is something we should focus on. This is something, and why? Why is it so important to focus on it? I think I want to bring it back to the idea that he doesn't have a name. I think that we can say, at a certain point, he is called Ha'ish. The Torah switches from calling him servant to calling him Ha'ish, right after the test happens. And I think there's also something here. Again, there's no name, but now he's Ha'ish. And what could be the significance of this? I think the Torah is trying to say that don't belittle what servants or what people from lower classes can do. They can have amazing ideas, and they're honest, and they're trustworthy, and they're like every man. So the Eved becomes Ish. Don't treat him as an Eved. Treat him as an Ish, as a man. And that could be any person. That's why there's no name. So you might think if there was a name, this is a special person. He was, all the other servants are lower class. They could never have come up with this. It was only, if there were a name, Eliezer or whatever. But maybe purposely the Torah hides the name so as to tell us every person has capacity to fulfill this very, very complex mission, which this was the mission that he was given, and also to, on his own, come up with this test, which eventually brought back Rebekah, and was a successful marriage because it ends with that there was love there. So there's some idea here of democratizing the ability of people that have honest and trustworthy ideas. It's not only that wealthy people, smart people, intelligent people, higher class people, but even this Eved who was this anonymous Eved, he can also come up with this great idea, which basically helped Isaac have Shalom Bayit. And the Chazal pick up on this, and they give us a very nice summary of this idea in a famous saying. And the saying is, Yafa sichatan shel avdei avot mitoratan shel banim. So the way to translate it is, I'll show you the translation of, you can find it in many places, but Chabad.org. Do you see Rabbi Acha said? Do you see it?
Yes.
The ordinary conversation of the servants of the patriarchs is more beloved before the omnipresent than the Torah of their sons. For the section dealing with Eliezer is repeated in the Torah 4 times. We saw that 4 times, whereas many fundamentals of the Torah were given only through allusions. So not even once are they explicitly mentioned, but you have to allude, you have to figure them out. They're so scarce. There's so many lacunas in the laws of the Torah. So what is Rabbi Acha saying? I think he's saying this idea of what I call democratizing the treatment of people, that even these servants, the way they talk, the way they come up with ideas, the way they execute their tasks that were given to them, can be even more important than the laws of the Torah, which were later given through Moses. And they're considered the most important. And here comes this story and tells us, wait a minute, don't make light of any person. Even these person who in that society were considered at the lower stratum, they are so important that the Torah gives so much attention to them. We saw that through the Shalshelet, we saw that through the repetition, and I think also we see that through their being anonymous. And notice how Rabbi Acha says, he doesn't say Eliezer's conversations are more important. He keeps it anonymous. He says the ordinary conversation of the servants of the patriarch. So that fits into what we're talking about, that it remains anonymous in order that we treat every person like that. And we realize that every person has great potential. So thank you all for joining us tonight.
So Shammai,
Thank you.
You.
I'm left with the sociological